Okay, naturally colored black frosting. I tried black sesame paste, black rice, and the answer is black cocoa, but not in the way that you may be seen in other recipes where they take a white frosting and add copious amounts of raw cocoa powder, including black, to make it black. So as I was thinking about this, I figured out that I was probably getting it backwards. See, I don't want to add the cocoa powder at the end as a last ingredient, but rather start with it. So what I think I did is reverse engineer a black chocolate butter ganache. It's smooth and glossy, and if you're wondering what it tastes like, it's a spreadable version of the cookie portion of an Oreo. Okay, here are the ingredients you need to make this frosting. I'm going to be frosting a 6-inch 3-layer cake today, so I'll need about 4.5 cups of this. There's black cocoa, white granulated sugar, salt, water, cream of tartar, and unsalted butter, and that's fine if it's cold from the fridge. And the first thing I'm going to do is add my black cocoa powder to a large pan, and I always go by weight. Cocoa powder is notoriously difficult to measure by volume or just using cups, but this is essentially what 72 grams or 3/4 of a cup looks like. Now I'm going to whisk in my white granulated sugar and salt, and then pour in the water and whisk it until it turns into this black liquid. Then the heat goes on to medium, and I'm going to whisk while it cooks. And I'm going to do this until it starts bubbling over the top completely, then cook for another 1 to 2 minutes. So cooking does a couple things. The cocoa powder contains starches that break open and swell when heated and in water, like flour. This creates structure in the form of a gel in the frosting, while at the same time allowing the cocoa powder to contribute that rich chocolate flavor and deep black color. Raw cocoa powder is also a little sandy, so cooking it is going to make the frosting a little bit smoother. Heating is also dissolving and melting the sugar, and that creates a syrup. Now, if you have a thermometer, you're going to want to cook this until it reaches around 225 to 230 degrees Fahrenheit. That means most, if not all, the water has evaporated, leaving the sugar syrup behind that has melted and will give that frosting that glossy finish. Now I'll turn off the heat and carefully give the syrup a taste. Black cocoa powder can taste alkaline, which is a hard flavor to describe, but it's like baking soda or a little bit soapy. So at this point, I like to add cream of tartar. This is an optional ingredient, but it's an acidic powder that helps lessen the alkaline taste of cocoa powder by neutralizing it. Now I'm going to take the cold unsalted butter and add it into this hot mixture, whisking the entire time. It will at first get oily on top, but if you keep whisking, it'll turn thick and glossy and black, and you will no longer see any oil separation. After that, give it another taste. This is what your finished frosting will taste like. It should be smooth and rich, buttery, and taste like a liquid form of Oreo cookies. You still find that it's overly bitter, you can add a bit more cream of tartar. If you think that it's too sweet, add a pinch of salt. All of these ingredients balance each other out, so experiment until you like the taste of it. Now what I like to do is take a spatula and pour this all into the mixing bowl that I'll mix it in, and I kind of swirl it around to coat the sides of the bowl so that it cools faster. And then I place this in the freezer because I don't like waiting. This amount of frosting took around 40 minutes to chill using my freezer, and I took it out every 10 minutes, swirled the frosting around, and put it back in. What I'm looking for is an entirely frosted bowl, especially the bottom, because it functions like an ice cream maker. Some of the frosting will have solidified on the outer ring, but the inside is still kind of liquid. You can use the fridge, it'll just take longer, and you can let it solidify into a super thick syrup and then let it rest at room temperature until it's soft enough to mix. So it's up to you. But here you can kind of see the consistency that I'm looking for. It's a super thick, black, and glossy syrup. I'm gonna go ahead and put my paddle attachment on and mix until it's nice and soft. Now it's normal to let it mix for a long time, up to 10 minutes to get it to the right consistency, but what you can do is use the color as an indicator. My frosting turned kind of gray. That means that the butter fat is still a little bit too cold and can't pull or emulsify the frosting properly. So just keep mixing, and as it warms up, it'll turn blacker and blacker. And when it's nice and jet black and smooth, that means that your frosting is ready. Now let me show you how this stuff frosts. I'm going with an Oreo flavor profile, so I made chocolate cake layers using the same black cocoa powder, and then I filled this cake with vanilla marshmallow meringue. So this is to simulate a big Oreo cookie. Now I'm going to crumb coat and frost this cake, which by the way was very easy to do. It was a smooth and creamy frosting that went on very easily, and you use the cake scraper, it would just glide across the sides. It did have a touch of sticky
flakiness to it. So in my last video, when I went over all of the different buttercreams, I noted that the ones that had starches in them, including German and Ermine, which I actually found out I was pronouncing that wrong. It's Ermine buttercream. When they have starch granules in them, it does give a gluey texture. There was just a touch of it in this one, but not as much as the other two. Flavor-wise, just a note, black cocoa and just chocolate in general are pretty assertive flavors. So that's why I decided to go with the marshmallow filling inside this cake. However, when I sliced into and took a bite of this cake, it was not overpowering at all. It was very smooth and mellow. You could definitely frost and fill an entire cake with this frosting, no problem. It's not going to overpower or seem overly heavy or dense. I could actually swim in this frosting.